see this figure because thank God I know this. Without knowing it, if I had invested in this project, what would have happened? So I am happy that I came to know well before the project even commenced. Well, just theorizing it, NPV should be at least, it should be positive. That's the idea. If it is negative, we feel depressed. If it is positive, we feel happy. Fine. Then, in actual business, it is not a one-off calculation like we are doing. In actual business, it is a continuous review mechanism which should exist. Every year we have to redo it because the interest rates are keeping on fluctuating. You are applying this interest rate for 6 years. How sure are you that the interest rate remains constant? Therefore, it is one important thing is annual review. Or any time that the interest rate fluctuates very widely, then do the same exercise.
But we cannot withdraw, right, sir? Once we commence.
You can, mid-course corrections you can.
Mitigation.
Yes, mid-course corrections. Maybe a product change, maybe. Or planned outlay may be postponed. Revenues, how to increase that revenue. These are strategic management tools which you can apply, starting from a prediction of failure. The prediction tool is this. As I said, it is not a one-off attempt in the beginning of the project. It should be constantly reviewed. Okay, that is number one. Number two, interest rate can change, making our calculations go wrong. For that, we should have a very brief understanding of what is interest rate, how is it derived, and what are the parameters which appear to compose an interest rate. It depends upon what benchmark you have taken for you to have a desired interest rate. I said 20%. That is because alternative opportunities are something like 12, 13, 15. I want something plus. First of all, I should know that benchmark. Then I will add on some 2%, 3%, so on. In India, the commercial banks charge interest on lending. When we say in the newspaper, when we read bank rate, you should wonder which bank's rate. And is it a rate for lending or paid to a depositor in the bank? Is it a fixed deposit interest rate we are talking about, or is it a lending rate of the commercial banks for business field? Suddenly there is another complication, RBI announcing some rates called bank rate. I think day before yesterday, our friend did not change the rate, but at least that was an information that there is such a thing called a bank rate. He may not have changed it, but at least by reading it, you should know that there is such a thing like a bank rate. The word bank in bank rate refers to Reserve Bank of India, Central Banking Authority. Now, Reserve Bank is not a commercial organization. It is a regulatory organization. Now, what is its rate? Why does it have a bank rate when it is not a commercial organization? As a regulator, RBI's role is also to see that the commercial banks remain liquid and do not become bankrupt. Gone are the days when banks were going bankrupt. In India, earlier, there was one Lakshmi Bank, not Lakshmi Vilas Bank, there is one Lakshmi Bank, another Bank of Rajasthan. Nowadays what is happening is when the banks become bankrupt, they are taken over by a bigger bank and are not allowed to die, because any bank going bankrupt in developing economy is a very great strain for the economy, country's economy. Besides the loss of deposits for the depositors. Even when the bank does become bankrupt, a taking over bank, that is acquiring bank, may set terms by saying, I will acquire only the assets of your bank and not liabilities. And the bank's asset is loans. Bank's liabilities are deposits from the depositors. Now, the acquiring bank will say, I will not acquire your bank by becoming obliged to return their deposits. But I will definitely acquire your bank so long as the loans are concerned. I will start getting revenue out of that loan which you have given. Even there, I will not take all loans. I will categorize and quality-wise I will decide which loan I will take. Canara Bank wanted to take Amanat Bank, Amanat Cooperative Bank. I wonder if you know that there is such a bank.
Yeah.
Because it's a very big bank. Amanat Cooperative Bank is in the cooperative sector and headquarters Bangalore and head office is in Shivadinagar, big building next to Shivadinagar bus station. High-tech bank applying all technology. And it became bankrupt. So RBI, Canara Bank offered to take over. Up to a point they succeeded, but next, without any reason, before taking over, they backstepped and announced that they are not interested, they won't take it. The matter went right up to High Court, which requested Canara Bank to take over. It didn't direct, because no High Court can direct like that. Even when High Court gives a sort of a request, it is almost a dictation. Almost. When High Court says guideline, we advise you, please reconsider. These are the words used by High Court when they actually mean judgment, decision, order. In spite of it, Canara Bank refused to take. The new chairman said no. ICICI Bank took over what is called Bank of Rajasthan those days, about 3-4 years ago. Bank of Rajasthan was going down the drain. Why should a strong bank take over a weak bank and become weak by itself? Why is the question. Banks are interested in taking over weaker banks because of the infrastructure already developed by those weak banks in terms of the network of bank branches. In Bank of Rajasthan, for example, in the whole state of Rajasthan, it ruled the roost for some time and it has a presence in every district, even in rural areas. ICICI Bank wanted to go in a big way for rural banking because they found that agricultural deposits are quite substantial. Seasonally, but substantial. If ICICI Bank had to go it alone, they would have had to spend enormous money in capital expenditure. On the contrary, if it says we will take over the deposits but at the same time all the assets are ours, just change the board and then all the branches in Rajasthan become ICICI Bank. This is the advantage they had, provided of course the bank had a policy to go rural, only then, not all banks. As I was saying, RBI regulates the banks in order to ensure that the banks don't become bankrupt. I said that. Your question should be, what is the meaning of bankruptcy?
So why banks go for bankruptcy?
Yes, why? Why? Correct. Why do, first of all, why does it happen that the bank should become bankrupt at all? There are so many private companies which are doing and all that and they are not going paupers but why banks are usually going there? You see, bank is an extremely vulnerable financial entity sitting on an extremely bustable bubble more than any other business. For answering your question, we should understand the business of the bank. Business is simply borrowing from you and lending it to you. Simple. That is depositor, you are the borrower. I borrow money from you by way of a deposit by offering an interest rate. Say 4%, 5%, 6% for fixed deposit. I lend it to you almost at 12%, 14% and that the difference between the lending rate and borrowing rate becomes cost of funds for me, the banker. And lending rate becomes my return on my investment. The cost of the funds must be definitely much lower than the return that I get. The difference is called the spread, S-P-R-E-A-D. That's the lending rate minus the cost of deposits, namely the deposit interest rate, is the spread. Spread is the gross profit of the bank. Gross means taking only the cost of the funds and the earnings from the funds, ignoring all other overheads such as administrative costs, losses to be provided for, all the operations. You get net profit after taking it. So first of all, you should have a wide spread. Spread means gross profit. Administrative overheads and all that are your controllable variables. If it exceeds gross profit, you can control the costs. On the top of it, if all the depositors knock on your door on a new moon day, on a Amavasya, next to Hosur cemetery, all wearing white clothes and then standing 1 foot above the ground and letting the hair loose. You should have enough money, ready money, to pay them if they want to close all their deposits. But if you have lent all these deposits which I have borrowed to various industries, for example, a 30-year infrastructural project I have invested, I have borrowed from you 6 months fixed deposit. Where is 6 months and where is 30 years? And if you want on the 6th month your money back for some purpose, I can't say your money is very safe. It is for 30 years, it's very safe. Don't worry. First let him repay the loan, then I will give you the loan. It can be done like that. In order to ensure that the banks have liquidity, that is a state in which on a ready call, on tap, I should have enough liquefiable asset with which to repay. That is, I should have the control on lending, which gives me a cushion, a sort of an insurance, to see that I don't default in repaying a depositor. This state of liquidity is regulated by RBI for every bank, including cooperative banks. It is regulated by law in the sense that it is contained in what is called Banking Regulation Act 1949.
Liquidity means this much money has to be there with the bank at any point
of time, related to some other benchmark. How much money you can ask me? We will come to that. A certain kitty must always be there with the bank in order to meet a portion of the depositors, because the understanding is that all 100 people will not knock at the same place. So over a period of time, the economy has shown that demand for repayment, theoretically it is possible that everyone will ask, but why would they ask? All of them. They will take and put it in some other bank. That's all that will happen. Not all of them are business people. So the chances are that about 20-25% of the deposits that I have borrowed should not be lent in such a manner that I can't tap it and give it if those 25% people demand it. I should have the liquidity. That means I should have invested that money in such instruments, not loans of long periods, but in such instruments which can be sold by me and collected in cash online, instantly. But at the same time, I am not expected to keep it in a locker idly, currency notes, for which I have paid a cost. I am not utilizing it at all by lending, because I am afraid any knock on the door, I am afraid one depositor is standing on the threshold. That tension I should not have. So I can invest, not lend to a person, but I can invest in some securities. Securities in finance is the terminology used for an instrument, a monetary instrument in the form of a certificate issued by a borrower. It's a monetary instrument issued by a borrower. Represented by a certificate, a sort of a IOU certificate or a promissory note. We can call it a promissory note.
So this NSC bonds also comes in?
No. 1 minute. I am talking about the securities which should be immediately sold. In case somebody knocks, I should be able to sell this instrument in a market. It is something like a share certificate. If you have surplus money, for one day you obtain a share and keep it. Suddenly, if you need money on the internet, you can sell it. That is called approximate cash. It is almost cash. So even in the balance sheets next week, which I am going to show you, we find cash and cash equivalents are the headings you will find in current assets in the balance sheet. We have done balance sheet already here, so they can understand it. In current assets portion, the heading will be just not cash and bank balance as it used to be in earlier days. It's cash and cash equivalents, certificates. Now, what are they? There are brokers with whom the banks engage, all on telephone and on networking system. There is no registered office here and there and people going and buying and selling. No. Electronically. We'll go back a little bit, 2 steps behind. For example, 28th February, coming 28th, there will be a budget. Budget is an exercise which every government does once a year, narrating the outlay on account of certain schemes of the country, the government, schemes of the government, and narrating the sources of money raised from the public or from probably loans from the public again to meet that outlay. It is a budget, it is an estimate. Now, you can't make a pie-to-pie equation between the outlay and the sources. There will always be a gap. Probably sometimes the outlays will be more and resources which they were estimating and confident that they will receive will be less. Then we have a deficit between the expenditure and the source. Such a budget is called a deficit budget. Now you will definitely find Janata Party government proposing a deficit budget on 28th February. The reason is, for developing economy, you should have a deficit budget. You must bite more than what you can chew. Then only economy grows. You can't be very negative or what you call very defensive by saying, I've got 10 rupees, I'll spend about 8 rupees, 9 rupees, I'll keep it. So it means a positive surplus budget. The economy will not grow. At the same time, it should not be too much of a deficit, that's also another matter. Now let's not go into economics too deeply. We are talking about banks and bankruptcy, I have not forgotten that. I am only going 2 steps back in order to come forward. After the budget is, I've got another class, so...
What time, sir?
12:30 I believe.
It's 12:10.
12:30.
20 minutes. Yeah, maybe we can continue the same discussion for some.
Now it's 12.
What?
Now time is 12. So we will remind you at 12:30.
Yes, please do that. And I will continue wherever I have stopped in the next week properly. I will not let you miss anything, provided you attend. Of course, you have been attending regularly.
Deficit budget.
In the month of March or April, this government, what it will do is, because of this deficit budget, they will feel the pinch of it. In the very first month or second month, they have to pay salary to all administrative setups of the government. It is a huge expenditure. It's called planned expenditure. There are 2 kinds of expenditure in budget, called planned expenditure, PLANNED, and unplanned expenditure. You will see all this in the budget statement 28.
I think this is what Arun Jaitley recently said, we are going to cut all the expenditures.
Which expenditure? There are 2 kinds, planned expenditure and unplanned expenditure. First you understand what it is. A planned expenditure is one which is proposed consciously as a target to fulfill. It is a planned expenditure. For example, I want to take over some 1,000 villages in every district for providing water supply, drinking water. This is a planned expenditure. It has to come from public resources only. Public resources can be taxes. of both kinds, direct and indirect. This comes under planned expenditure. Another is unplanned expenditure. Now, for a long time, even I was confused when I was a student. This unplanned expenditure that means you suddenly found an expenditure which you never knew, and you are surprised by that expenditure which you never estimated. On the contrary, it is such a funny language. Unplanned expenditure is the only expenditure which is planned. Which means, which is certain, not planned. Unplanned expenditure, don't write like that, please.
No.
Please don't write like that because I am responsible for it. Please understand, I may joke about it,
Yes,
but
yes.
when it comes to writing, it should be perfect. Plan is budgeting an unknown or making some arrangements for an event that you are not 100% sure will happen. That is called planning. Planning you do when future is uncertain. On the contrary, other expenditures which you are certain about and there is nothing to plan about, like paying a salary to IAS officer in the government department, there is nothing to plan about it. So that expenditure is unplanned. In fact, unplanned is not the word they use nowadays because of this confusion. Again, you write properly, it is non-planned expenditure. Don't use the word unplanned. Please cut off wherever you have written. I was only explaining, but when it comes to technical language, when it is written down, no amount of imprecision is present. It is non-planned expenditure. This expression you will find it on 28 February, certain.
So salary is a non-planned.
Yes, anything that does not require planning but of which you are aware and you have to pay it, rent for your house, is it planned expenditure or unplanned expenditure? It is a non-planned.
Non-planned.
It's not, I'm going to plan how much I will give to this fellow. Can you do that? You will be kicked forthwith from the house. So, where you cannot plan at all, it is already what you call programmed, is a non-planned expenditure. Now, this non-planned expenditure is certain to happen, and sometimes income tax receipts will come on 20th of every month. Certain large amount will come. Collection of advance tax and this and that. So revenue will come on 20th. But that month's salary would have fallen due on the 1st. March 20th, supposing the collection of revenues come, that is tax revenues, into the government treasury. On this 1st of the same month, you would have to pay the salary, but the outflow has occurred earlier than the inflow. There is a gap. This gap is called working capital gap. Just like in any other company, where your sales revenue will come day after tomorrow, but you have to pay the raw material supplier yesterday. This is called working capital gap. That's why the companies go to banks for raising short duration funds called cash credit. All this later on. But now the government also, something like a customer, it is experiencing a cash mismatch, a cash inflow-outflow mismatch, time mismatch. You can't expedite the collection, income tax collection so easily at that level. So what they do is they immediately call the brokers and make an announcement. I want to sell a 10 days treasury bill. TB, treasury bill is the name of that instrument. Bill should not be misunderstood as what you pay in Akshaya Hotel after eating idli. Not that bill. This bill is called Bill of Exchange. The full name is Bill of Exchange. It's an instrument, it's a negotiable instrument, mentioning the amount, mentioning that it is borrowed money, acknowledging that it will be repaid on the stated date, and that it will bear so much of interest. The holder of such a bill is the lender of money to the government. and he is 100% certain because he is lending it to bank, lending it to government. Therefore, it is called a risk-free investment on the part of the lender. Therefore, also the interest rate return on it is very low. Lower and lower the risk, lower and lower the return, naturally.
But assured.
But assured. Now the bank, again, years together in the bank, it's coming into my head. I can't use the word company or government, but I am breathing in and breathing out bank. The government therefore raises short duration funds by issuing treasury bills. The interest is not mentioned there. Usually treasury bills are issued at a discount of the face value. Once again, treasury bill carries a face value. It is also called monetary value. It is also called nominal value.
So these treasury
One certificate carries 100 rupees is the nominal value.
it's like Kisan Vikas Patra or something like that.
Okay. Something, share certificate, 10 rupees. One share certificate is 10 rupees mentioned there.
Face value, yeah, this is the face
That
value.
is called face value, also called nominal value. Now the government says, I will issue a face value, TB, of 1000 rupees for 10 days. That is, I will repay that 1000. But while issuing, I will only collect from you 990 rupees. Therefore, this difference between the maturity amount of 1000 and the issue price of 990 translates itself into the return on investment for you, and that will be the interest that you earn, not separately 9%, 10% and so on. Did you understand?
Yes, yeah.
So TBs are short duration instruments. How short is short? You should ask me, sir. I am not using adjectives in English language. Every word has got a meaning. Words have in concrete quantity. Any time between 0 and 365, 1 day to 365 days is called short. See how definitive the word is, short. So TBs can be issued for 1 day. If the salary date is tomorrow and the bank, government doesn't have money, then the government can issue for a day and repay day after tomorrow. Such TBs are called overnight TBs. You will find all this in usually Wednesdays in economics. Overnight TBs. Supposing I, as a banker, buy, because I got some surplus money, I worked, because it is idle with me, even after lending to commercial entities, I need to keep some 25 rupees, 100 rupees. Now, that money I have got, so I am not permitted to earn money on it by lending. But instead of keeping it in the shelf earning 0 rupees, I will buy that TB, even if it is a very low interest rate. But I suddenly want it, after buying it today, day after tomorrow I found that I need it myself very much, but I have to wait for 90 days. So I go to the market and say, any buyer of this instrument. There will be another fellow having flush funds, unlike me, wondering how to make some little earning on it. He will grab it and he will buy it. So for every seller, there will be a buyer and 2 people make a market. So there is a market of that kind for TBs, just like share market. The only thing is TBs are traded among banks and not among individuals, as in the case of share market. Now it serves my purpose that I get some 2% interest instead of 0. At the same time, I am totally liquid. That is, if there is a tap on me, I will post it, my offer to sell, I get it before the end of the day. Account settled. This is cash equivalent amount that I have. This will protect me from opposite word, illiquidity. That is, lack of liquidity. It will protect me from illiquidity. The Reserve Bank says, in order to maintain this liquidity, you should not lend more than, that is Monday Raghuram's formula was 21.25%, 21.5%. Should be maintained with you in your pocket for every 100 rupee deposit that you receive. It was 22%, it became 0.5%, it reduced. And it released 14,700 crores for extra lending opportunity for the banks. 0.5%.
This can be again increased?
Anytime.
Okay.
All banks will be on the verge of their toes anytime. The governor has that power. And no intervention by the government. RBI has that power. RBI uses this power in order to contain inflation. If there is a lot of inflation beyond acceptable limit, and acceptable level also, you should say how acceptable is acceptable. You should ask me quantitatively we should talk. Which percent? 4%, 5%, 6%, or 0%, no inflation.
But they said 3 to 4%.
Who said?
RBI.
Why did they say? Who told them? World Bank tells. World Bank tells because not that they are ruling India economically. They are ruining India economically, yes. They cannot rule. But they say unless you maintain and show that your inflation rate is targeted at 5%, today itself I can't show it. It's targeted at 5% and systems are in place to achieve it. Unless you show it to me, we will not give you AIDS, AIDS. AIDS is help, I mean, not other AIDS. You know what the expansion of that other aid which we are talking about, AIDS disease, expand?
Acute immunodeficiency syndrome.
Wrong. I used to tell the bank, when I was in the bank, I used to tell, State Bank has got really all sick people, including me. All of us are suffering.